on the bottom shelf.
Glix, what just happened?
We encountered a wormhole. In order to restore order to the station, we need to review movies that are, quote, good.
I'm worried about exploding.
So, oh my gosh.
You get this transmission, send help. We are trapped watching good movie. Did we decide who's opening their box next?
Me? I get to open a box?
Yes, Celeste. You get to open your box. Let's do this. Let's find our way home.
I'm so excited. What's in my box?
All right, open that up. What's in there, Celeste?
It's Deep Impact.
Wait, what?
I love this movie.
Wait, what? Glix, is this because I tried to hack you during the Primitive Rhythm Machine? Guys, I don't...
John, do you need a hug?
Bro.
He has extra arms.
Yes.
Disaster movies for me are like watching a puppy get eye surgery. It just... No.
I feel uncomfortable with that statement.
Oh, come here, big guy.
Prepare yourself to discover a world of terrible movies. See blue over on the bottom shelf.
What is happening, everybody? It's your boy here, Dumpster McTrashface, and I'm with the rest of the crew of this merry band of something makers. With me today is everybody's favorite Admiral Celeste.
Hello.
Celeste's totally not nepotism hired husband. I mean, my captain, Dallas.
Ahoy.
And Octobam Branson Boykin.
I am saluting with all 8 of my appendages.
How are you standing then?
I'm doing a handstand. Never mind. I'm still getting used to this.
That was weird watching you try to figure that out.
It was weird feeling me trying to figure it out.
I needed to throw some like cardboard down from the breakdance.
Fair.
I bet you could do a sick windmill, bro. That said, welcome everybody. This is The Bottom Shelf, where every movie has its place. I am driving this ship, but it is not my movie this week. We have been ordered by Glix that if we want to find our way home, we have to watch movies we enjoy. And as soon as Celeste opened her box, I knew I wasn't going to enjoy it.
Aw, I'm sorry.
But before we get into our expectations, let's talk about this movie. Bam, will you go ahead? For those of you who don't know, since before, just to peel that back in case everybody gets confused when I start saying this out loud, I've since dubbed Branson Bam. So
yes,
you may hear me use it. If you get confused, that's it. So anyway, Bam, go ahead and read the back of the box. Introduce the movie for us if you could. And
all right. Deep Impact is the 1998 disaster film that you thought was Armageddon at the video store, but were sorely disappointed when not one Aerosmith lyric was referenced. Written by the ghostwriter Bruce Joel Rubin and starring the judge Robert Duvall, T. Leone before she ran away from dinosaurs, Elijah Woods when he was the size of a hobbit, and the voice of My Life documentary, Morgan Freeman.
Fair.
It's very fair.
It also has Lily Marblemouth last name. I can't remember her name. I can't pronounce it. But she was in a few movies too after this.
Know who that it's talking about.
No, you're going to make me try to pronounce it.
Just tell me what her character was. Have you seen this before?
She was the no.
Oh,
but I well, let me rephrase that. I've seen parts of this when I was like when this came out. This came out in like 1998. So,
are you talking about the little girl?
I'm talking about the child bride. That's all I remember.
Yeah.
It also has a post Star Trek Denise Crosby.
I don't know who that is, but I'll take your word for it.
Tasha Yar, Lieutenant Tasha Yar from Next Gen.
I still don't know who that is.
Oh,
for it.
The girl
that is her,
about,
isn't it?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, the girl you're talking about. She's actually in one of the movies that people act like I'm crazy when I describe to them.
The girl, who's talking about, me or Bam?
The one you were talking about, John.
Okay.
She was in a movie called Branded, which is a movie that I genuinely am fascinated with, but everyone thinks I'm making it up when I describe the movie to them.
Yes.
Yeah. She was also in a movie called The Glass House, which my wife is a fan of. So that's the reason why I knew who she was. But it doesn't matter because we're stuck in space.
Space.
Your
The
poor
final
wife.
frontier. Dallas.
Let me see the box here. Let's see here. All right. What would you do if you knew that in a handful of days, an enormous comet would collide with Earth and all of humanity would be annihilated? The countdown to doomsday is underway in this gut-wrenching, eye-opening blast of a movie experience. Jeff Craig's 60-second preview with an all-star cast featuring Robert Duvall, Tia Leone, Elijah Wood, Vanessa Redwood, Maximilian Schechel, and Morgan Freeman, with the film's dynamic fusion of large-scale excitement and touching human-scale storylines. Deep Impact makes its impact felt in a big and unforgettable way.
I was curious as to how we follow that up.
To be fair, that is par for the course with movie promotion from 1998. So it makes
That's
sense.
true.
That brought tears to my eyes. That took me back. I felt like I was 12 again. That was awesome.
I'm glad you said that was awesome because I was about to say good tears or bad tears.
Good tears. Good tears.
All right. Well, let's follow suit. I got some trivia on this clunker, and let's see here now. In this movie, there's a line apparently that whoever's president says in a press conference. He says, "Life will go on, and we will prevail." Originally in the script, the president was supposed to say, "Life will go on, we will prevail. This is not Armageddon." But the producers later realized that this movie was going to be released as box office competition with the movie Armageddon, which
They should have left that line in there.
I mean,
That would have been great.
This is not Armageddon.
Anyway, at the beginning of this movie, when Dr. Wolf was using his computer, the screen reads May 10th, 1998, which was the date that this film was released.
Nice.
Morgan Freeman wanted his character, apparently he was the president, to be wearing an earring. Director Mimi Leder turned him down. Later, we see the president addressing the nation from the Oval Office. His sleeves are rolled up, and one of Morgan Freeman's tattoos is showing. The director liked this and felt that it gave the president an everyman look. I didn't know that Morgan Freeman had tattoos.
Oh, yeah.
That just, to me, that just feels like that old rumor that Mr. Rogers was a World War II sniper, and that's the reason why he always wore long sleeve shirts, was to cover his sniper tattoos.
Yeah.
Apparently, the Hollywoodisms in this movie show their cards a little bit, because when the crew makes rendezvous with the comet, the stream of audio and visual seems to be instantaneous in this movie. But in real life, there was supposed to be a 20-second delay in the transmission because they were about 3,728,120 miles from Earth. And it should have taken that long for that information to get back.
It's fair.
One of the and this will be my last one because there's like a lot of things I could say about this movie. But one of the NASA officials in this movie is played by Gary Griffin. I'm not sure if it's Jerry Griffin or Gary Griffin. It's Gerry, and I've seen that pronounced either way. So, Mr. Griffin, if you're listening, I sincerely apologize. I'm just speaking your name phonetically. I mean no ill intent if I mispronounce that. But anyway, this man, who is a former NASA flight director, he actually presided over the Apollo 12 mission and later became the director of the Johnson Space Center in Houston.
Fascinating.
Very cool.
So it's cool to see like legit people in this movie playing their parts.
Yeah.
So. All right, let's talk expectations. Madam Admiral, being as this is your movie, we'll start with you.
Okay. I'm expecting to enjoy this movie. This was one of the movies that my mom and I would binge watch. We would watch this one, we would watch Armageddon, and we would watch Apollo 13. Generally all in one Saturday.
What did space do to you guys that you have to watch terrible presentations of it like that for?
Oh, we watched Space Camp too.
You're not making it better.
It doesn't change the question.
It was there's only certain types of movies my mom likes and really enjoys.
Poltergeist, while you're having fever dreams, for instance.
She did not like that.
I would love that.
Her dad got in so much trouble for that. But yeah, so I don't know. I enjoyed those movies because they were fun. They weren't Little House on the Prairie or Hallmark or Lifetime. So I was down for it.
Yuck. All I can say is I'm glad you are in a broader movie viewing atmosphere now. And I'm sure you probably are too.
Oh, she watched a lot of other movies. It's just we didn't repeat watch them.
Okay. Well, let's move on to the man, the myth, the legend, Dallas.
Yes. So, for my expectations on this film, honestly, having a hard time distinguishing this in Armageddon in my mind.
One has Bruce Willis and Aerosmith.
Yeah.
And the other one has pre-Lord of the Rings Elijah Wood.
Yes. I don't remember him being in this movie either. So,
to be fair, can we take a step back for a second and say, can anybody tell me an Elijah Wood movie before Lord of the Rings other than North?
I don't know what North is.
Yeah, I wasn't even aware of North, so that's a no for me.
This movie. This is where I know Elijah Wood's from.
No, but so like for me, like, all right, to be perfectly fair, this movie came out in theaters in 98. Likely it was circulating 99 in video stores. And that was a weird era for me for watching movies just because of life situations. So there's a lot of things that are blurred for me in the head. That being said, I feel like I enjoyed the movie. I like disaster movies to a degree. So I'm expecting to be entertained. How well? We'll find out.
All right. And so that leaves you, oh Calamari, King of Calamari.
Yeah.
The tentacled Titan.
Oh, I like that one. Expectations for this movie. I have actually seen this before. if I remember correctly, it was one of our trips to the video store, and this was Mom and Dad's pick.
Ah.
And it was not my pick, but we had it available. It was one night that I didn't feel like going to bed yet, so I watched it. I don't remember hating it. I never got the urge to watch it again, so I don't know what to expect. So I don't know. We'll see.
All right. And as far as my expectations are concerned, okay, there's some context that needs to be put to this because I've been pre-crapping on this movie since Celeste opened the box. And
Sorry.
No. I need to explain myself to a certain degree. And the year 1998 is the reason. You see, when this movie came out, it was the same year that Armageddon came out. Okay.
Yes.
I was, contrary to how I am now, I was an extremely social person in high school.
Oh.
And it was uncommon for me to be home anytime before 1 a.m. when I was in high school, on the weekends. And the summer of 98, when Armageddon came out, I went and saw it in the theater like everybody did. And then I'd go hang out with some friends and I'd be like, hey, what's everybody want to do? And they're like, hey, let's go see a movie. I'm like, cool. What are we going to go see? And they're like, let's go see Armageddon. Rinse, wash, repeat. 5 times in the theater in 1 month.
I can't imagine paying to see Armageddon that many times.
That experience burnt me so hard for disaster movies in general.
That's fair.
When my family rented this movie on VHS to watch it when it came out, I made it a point to go do something else because I couldn't. And it's kind of carried with me since then. Like, my wife loves disaster movies, and I'll buy her like Roland Emmerich films for her. It's like John Carpenter for me. She just eats it up.
Oh.
And that's not to say that I despise all disaster movies. Every so often one will come out where it does right. But the problem with me with me in disaster movies is that they all hit the same tropes.
That's fair.
And I need new ideas and new concepts brought to the table for me to enjoy something if it's a rehash of something I've seen before, i.e. the comet hitting the movie. I mean, sorry, Earth. Freudian slip.
Whoops.
But like say for instance, Mars Attacks is a disaster movie.
Yeah.
You know, it is. Mm-hmm. It hits all the disaster movie tropes. You have the too large cast with everybody having their own independent drama going on in the midst of a disaster. And the whole focus of the movie is to demonstrate the human element throughout the entire movie during the crisis. But the thing about it is it turns it on its head. It basically uses all the same tropes to mock the tropes of every disaster movie.
Right.
Yeah.
And I loved it for it. The movie Volcano, which came out, I think, in 97 with Tommy Lee Jones.
I loved that.
Because it was different.
That was also in our rotation for a long while.
And so I it's not that I don't think disaster movies can be done well. It's just I don't think the majority of the Hollywood machine is going to be able to do something original with these ideas.
That's fair.
So I'm hoping, my fingers are crossed, but I don't have high expectations for this movie.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry I ran long on that, but I needed to add context.
We would always watch Volcano with Lake Placid.
I don't see the connection, but that works. I thought you were going to say Volcano with Dante's Peak, and I'm like,
never seen Dante's Peak. Never seen it.
That was the Pierce Brosnan movie, wasn't it?
Yep.
Yeah.
See, and then for those of you out there who did not experience the 90s in a way that you can remember effectively, there was a period of time where studios would basically be filming the same exact movie to compete with each other. Like in this case, Armageddon and Deep Impact. You had Volcano and Dante's Peak. And it would go down the line like that. So,
Disney and DreamWorks did that for a while too.
You had Signs. You had Signs, not Signs. The Sixth Sense and The Others.
Oh
wait,
yeah,
I
those
have
did come
seen
out at the same
Dante's
time, didn't they? Yeah.
So, but that said, so it wasn't uncommon for people to take sides and fight each other over which one was better. Tombstone and Wyatt Earp.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I'm looking through the disaster movie tropes on tvtropes.org.
Mm-hmm.
And from what I remember of this movie and Armageddon, every other movie, this disaster movie, this is pretty accurate. It's like playing a game of what's that game where they read off a list of things like give me a verb, give me an object.
Mad Libs.
It's like an episode of Mad Libs, but disaster movie.
Told you. It's like
Funny.
Okay, let's actually watch this movie because everything I want to say to respond to that, I have to watch the movie before I can say them. So
Okay.
if you don't get that at home, you don't need to. All right, let's watch a movie, everybody.
Dear listeners, this is your opportunity to escape. Our crew has just entered into the media projection chamber. What horrors and madness that they consume are unknown. Their mental state upon their return is unknown. You have been warned.
You okay there, John?
No.
Well, that's the show, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for coming.
All right.
At least this one actually does have child marriage, unlike Ponyo.
Ponyo has child marriage.
No, it doesn't.
2 5-year-olds get married at the end of Ponyo. I just saved you $20 or
married.
2 hours. All right. So anyway, let's talk about this disaster of a movie. Okay. So what I want to say, which does not spoil this movie, I don't think, is, and unless you've seen this other movie I'm about to reference, you won't understand it either. The end of this movie is so similar to the end of Moonfall that I had to look on IMDb to make sure that Roland Emmerich was not involved with this movie.
I don't know what Moonfall is.
Moonfall was the most...
I'm sorry. It was the disaster movie that John reviewed on
Strangers and Aliens.
Strangers and Aliens. Check their podcast out because they're a great podcast also. And John absolutely hated it. One of the co-hosts absolutely loved it. And the whole podcast almost burned to the ground.
I believe that.
I'm sorry, but Evan David said that they needed to bring in another moon that they could drive across the universe.
No, his exact words is like, I loved it. I want Moonfall fall harder. That is a direct quote. Fall harder.
To be fair, I was the one who threw Fall Harder out there first, but to mock it.
I laughed so hard at that comment. Listening to you and Evan duke that out was strangely hysterical. It was like watching Mike Tyson versus Logan Paul. I'll let you decide who's who in that conversation later. But anyways,
go listen to the show, everybody. It's a decent episode because the tension there is fantastic. Evan, if you're listening, it's nothing but love, bro. I'm sorry. That movie makes me want to throw myself into the dumpster fire.
I can just picture Ben in between the two of you, like Psyduck, going. Ah.
That's kind of how it was. Like Ben was literally, his opinion was the happy medium. Like he wasn't, he didn't like it, he didn't hate it. It was just meh. So anyway, enough about that terrible movie. Let's talk about this terrible movie.
So I want to say
Hey.
graphically, I enjoyed the graphics of the film the majority of the time.
The majority of the time, yes.
From them trying to land on the meteor to everything else, I thought it was really solid until you get to the very end where they're trying to simulate one of the disaster points. And I'm not going to say anything until we get to the spoilers section, but there's one of the touchstones of a disaster film that it just didn't get good. Like it, and I'm trying to think: is it a product of its time, or was it just not there? I mean, it did well financially, and I think it had a pretty decent budget. But for the majority of the film, I was actually, and I remember halfway through it going, this isn't bad graphically. Like I'm pretty impressed with some of this stuff.
Yeah, I appreciated the graphics too. I don't know if it was because there wasn't a ton of special effects that they needed, because they didn't do a lot with things that would need special effects. Just like a few key points.
They spent as much of the time focusing on the people on Earth and their reaction as they did the astronauts in space doing spacey stuff.
Yeah.
So there wasn't a huge need for special effects all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think how they did the effects in this movie, I think it was mostly practical.
Yeah.
Because
I could see that.
I think that the rockets and whatnot were models set in front of either a green screen backdrop of the actual an actual shot of outer space, or the outer space. Back in that time, it was easy to make a digital backdrop for that and make it look fairly realistic. So yeah, another point in the corner for practical effects, just to give the viewers a peek behind the kimono. When I was watching this, I watched it in UHD. I rented it in UHD, so I saw it in 4K.
Ooh.
And it held up.
Really?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's the reason why I kind of raised an eyebrow when Dallas said that he saw something later on in the movie that kind of did him out. But I almost wonder if they retouched it. They retouched it with a 4K treatment.
I don't know.
And smoothed it out. So I'd be curious to hear about it, because ultimately for me, my issue with this movie did not have to do with anything that was on the screen. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I felt the acting was fair.
Mm-hmm.
There's a part, and this isn't much of a spoiler because it's so early in the movie. So I'm going to say it now. But there's a part in the beginning where the reporter character mimics having an anxiety attack in a restaurant in front of her dad and her dad's new flavor of the week. And
is his wife?
Whatever. It's a vibe they're going for in the movie. But there's a point where she's having an anxiety attack, and I had to pause the movie to look at my wife and tell her, that woman is acting her butt off, because that is exactly what an anxiety attack looks like. And that is exactly how those people are asking her what's wrong, because she seems like she's upset or disinterested, but it's not because of them. She's staring off into space because she is currently preoccupied with something that is absolutely horrific inside her mind that she doesn't feel like she can talk to anybody about.
Right.
And I'm like, that woman should have gotten an Oscar for that scene, because that was the most realistic anxiety attack I've ever seen on a screen.
Yeah. It's pretty solid.
So I loved the acting. I love the actress that played the reporter. She later went on to play the Secretary of State and Madam Secretary. And I legitimately watched most of that show because I enjoy watching her act.
How about you, Bam? You've been kind of quiet, my dude.
I have thoughts. I'm trying to decide whether they're spoilery or not, because I don't want to. What I will say is that like everyone else has said, I thought the acting was pretty great. I love Morgan Freeman in pretty much anything he does. It's hard for me to find a Morgan Freeman movie I don't enjoy. I like Robert Duvall. Both of those men tend to play the same guy in every movie they're in, but I like those characters, so that's not really a detractor for me. My issue in general with the movie was it felt like it was trying to tell too many stories at once.
Oh.
I'll go into specifics when we get into spoilers, but I almost felt like this could have been a
TV series.
Yeah, a TV series where each episode that they stretch it all out to where they went deeper into each of the relationships, or each episode be dedicated to one relationship. It felt like it was trying to cram too much into one movie.
100% agree with you on that one, bro.
Yeah, I'm agreeing with you. Again, I thought it worked, but I can definitely say agree that there were times where like we needed more room with some of these characters.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
the astronauts, like they crammed. You had to really listen. Like, and that's key to this movie. You really had to listen to the dialogue because they crammed so much history about these astronauts, and
in the span of like 5 minutes.
Oh yeah, and so you really have to pay attention to what's taking place here. Which again, for our purposes, we're watching this for a review purpose. We kind of force ourselves to do it, but a casual moviegoer or just a Sunday afternoon, pop in a DVD and go. You may miss a few things.
Yeah. I think that's part of why I really enjoyed it when I was a kid, because there was so much to it that if you missed something the first time you watched it, the second and third time you watched it,
yeah,
you picked something else up.
I can see that.
I'll tell you what. I want to drill down on that, but in order to do that, we have to hit the spoiler section. So does anybody else have anything else they want to talk about that's non-spoilery before we get there?
There was this moment where they were in a hangar and they're singing. Oh, that's the wrong movie. Never mind.
Leaving on a jet plane.
I will say this in reference to there being too much story. I think that if they took out the reporter story, took out the childhood marriage story, and instead of Morgan Freeman being the president, let Morgan Freeman be the news anchor that talked to everybody, I think, and then stretch that out a little bit.
Bam.
Huh? You're
starting to tiptoe on spoilers.
See, territory. This is why I wasn't saying anything before. Hit the button. Just hit the button.
Ladies and gentlemen, the spoiler section.
Dallas, did you even hear what I said when I started singing along with you there?
I didn't hear the last words, no.
Oh, well, I'll leave that for a little Easter egg for everybody to discover. Okay, spoilers.
Yes.
Okay, so
go ahead.
All right, so to touch on the point I wanted to make once we hit the spoilers is, it was kind of something that I touched on earlier in just talking about disaster movie tropes in general, which is the too large of a cast. Honestly, there was too much story that they didn't show, and it was being told, which is a cardinal sin in movie making specifically, but in storytelling in general. There was a lot of 5 months, we didn't see the car wreck that killed the scientist that they were talking about. We didn't, there was just so much.
We did see the car wreck.
We did see the car wreck.
It was right at the beginning of the movie.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was at the very beginning of the movie.
Because
I must have blinked or something. I don't know.
Because Dallas and I were talking about the fact that he was using a floppy disk, and the fact that now you could just send the files instead of having to fly down the mountain.
He was trying to, but the email server was down.
Yeah. So,
but But yeah, I mean, there were still just large swaths of time that was cut.
Oh,
through.
totally.
It's just, and it's just like, you need to show that if you're trying to connect with your audience. And that could have been cut down if they didn't have so many characters and so many stories they were trying to tell at the same time. And that's part of the reason why I said, oh my gosh, this has to be a Roland Emmerich film, because he does that all the time. You see it in Independence Day. You see it in the Godzilla movie that he did. I mean, you see it in, just pick a Roland Emmerich movie. You see it in Moonfall, for Pete's sake. And that's the reason, there's a reason why I said the end of Moonfall feels so much like the end of this movie. People coming out of a cave to see that the disaster has been averted and we're all at peace again. And there's that moment of exultation with the president's speech at the very end, talking about how we have survived and we shall overcome as a species. When the year 2020 has done nothing but demonstrate to us that if something like this were to happen, we would fall apart because we would end up killing each other before the comet ever got here.
Yeah, I put down on my notes a lot. It was like, this does not represent reality at all. Like,
Well,
like
does it-
especially the way that the administration reacts to a news reporter stumbling on national secrets. They're basically like, oh, you know about this before we say anything. Okay, well then we'll give you a front seat and let you ask the first question, and then let you ask 3 more questions when you were only supposed to get 1. I'm like, if this were actually like happening, she would be in a black van somewhere in an undisclosed location.
She never would have gotten
Guantanamo.
close enough. She
Yeah.
never would have gotten close enough to the president to talk
Right.
to him.
Which plays into, I think they
But-
wanted to follow her story emotionally, and so they kind of needed a reason to put her in front of everybody. And I think the rush and the fact that they were trying to do so much in the span of a movie instead of over the arc of a season of a TV show is one of the reasons why they rushed it up. I think that's
Well-
one of those things, if they had showed her actually investigating and actually getting close, there would have been a believable way to explain why she's at the press conference getting the first question. They could have done more instead of her just showing up and being, hey, because I'm a reporter and I'm awesome, I get the first question.
So, kind of going back a bit to the that's not how the world is thing. That's not how the world is now, but is that how the world was in the 90s?
Yes.
I mean, we're
I think-
talking.
I think
We're
the
talking-
perception, Celeste, was that it was like this in the night. Not the reality, but the perception that we put out before the American public back in the 90s was very different than what we put out today. Today, it's we're almost gagging on realism and grittiness and everything like that. Whereas back then, there was still a level of our country we love people. Our country likes the best for us. We're going to do a band together. We're going to do what we need to do. All those kind of things. Likely, I mean, I'm looking at the writer of this, Bruce Joel Rendell, and my dude was born back in the 40s, back on the back end of World War II, where, so he grew up steeped in, our parents came together and fought together. So surely if the world is falling apart, our world would come back together. We're also on the back end of Independence Day, which again was another disaster movie where the world banded together and did stuff. So back in
Also
the
by the
90s,
same director.
yeah. So in the 90s, we put together, we had this vision that in the face of disaster, we would band together. And,
Well, and
but we're just so cynical now, for one reason or another, that we just cram down our throats that we can't be.
Well, and legitimately, the world as a whole has gone through a lot
Mm-hmm.
in the last 20 years, 24 years.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to wonder if that's changed perceptions of things or if it was something that was already happening. I don't know. In 98, I was like 10. Had no clue.
When I say the senior officer, I'm speaking out of age, not rank. But as the senior officer here, I can tell you the 90s had a very disenfranchised feel to them. There was a sense of bleakness during the 90s where only the 90s could have produced the grunge movement.
That's fair.
Keep in mind that, the grunge happened in the 90s for a reason. So,
right. But I
don't even necessarily have a problem with portraying a government with an administration that's actually lives up to the trust that they claim they want us to have in them. It's just the way she kind of backdoored herself into a secret was automatically promoted up to a level of status. Sure. I would have liked to have seen her dig up dirt and find things and learn things instead of one interview. The FBI captures her and now she's, the favored person. I think it would have brought more meaning to her being the anchor. Where she's having that conversation with her mom and she's like, everyone trusts you. You're the face of this now. I feel like her story arc specifically suffered from being rushed so much. And
I can definitely see that.
Because at first when I was making notes, I was like, this is silly. I actually didn't like the character very much at first. And then the more I watched her, the more I liked her character, but I realized that there was something that had to be overcome because it felt like she was just kind of handed the world on a silver platter. And
well, to be fair, she pays for it in the end.
Well, yeah, but see, even that, it I don't know. I think, like I said before, if we took her story and spread it over several episodes, take the story of the young kid who found the thing. There were so many emotional moments with him that felt forced. And I was watching it and I was like, I'm supposed to feel this emotion right now. But I guess because I was so self-aware of it, I wasn't feeling the emotion. It was, oh, look at there. Something's wrong with his very new wife who won't come along and they have to separate. Called that. Oh, look, they're at the door and he's feeling guilty and wants to leave. Knew that was coming. Oh, look, he found his in-laws and they are total, here, take the baby and run and we're going to stay here, kiss each other and die in the wave. Saw that. There were these moments that it was like, I'm supposed to feel something right now, but I just don't. And I don't think it was because the storytelling was bad. I think it was just because his story was nothing but emotional moments.
I'm gonna draw that back a little bit and disagree with one sentence you said in there.
What's that?
That the storytelling wasn't bad. And Celeste, that's not me taking a shot. That's not me taking a shot for a shot's sake, but
yeah, I know.
But the issue I have with this movie is the writing. Like everything else about this movie, the acting, the music, the visual effects, it was all what I would expect from a high budget blockbuster, and it filled the role. The reason why the writing let me down is because I didn't feel like there was a creative moment in here, and that's the point where I'm agreeing with you, Bam, is because that it felt like they put it felt like they were just checking boxes.
Yeah, and there was no filler in the middle to explain why those checked boxes mattered.
I can fix this movie for you. What you do, you start it exactly how you did. You have the kid discover the thing, the car crash. You have the reporter that does that. That creates the intrigue, and then you follow it all the way to the point where the ship goes up in space, and from that point forward, the movie stays in space with the rest of the crew. The problem with this movie is the scope was too big, and if everybody's Han Solo, then nobody's Han Solo.
Yes, yeah, no, I like that. There were too many heroes. Yes, I see what you mean. Too many protagonists.
I like this movie, but legitimately, if you were going to cut anything, it could have been the story with Elijah Wood.
Yes.
I think all the stories could have been cut. The only stories I found interesting were the people on the spaceship.
I liked the reporter story because
she was a whiny turd.
Fair, but I like that style of story of a reporter trying to find something and to deal with stuff, and so that kind of hit that for me. But again, I have a lot of nostalgia for this, so a lot of it hits for me. But I think if they had taken out the story with the high schooler, that they could have focused more on that.
Mm-hmm. That was the one that was most color by number of all of them.
The high schooler one?
Yeah.
Yeah. If the high school one felt weird and unnecessary. Like, I get the kid discovered the thing, but the amount of praise that went on him and everything else, the way it focused on him, it just felt out of pocket for what was taking place.
Yeah.
Throughout the entire, he held no purpose in the movie outside of he just happened to see it in the sky,
and that's kind of what I'm thinking too. Is every character in this movie, after their core function of this movie, I kept asking myself, what are they contributing to this movie that I should care what they're doing right now?
Mm-hmm. I think is it possible that some of the mundaneness of it was to try to, because, and this is a conversation. If every character, if it all does is focuses on the main character and the hero of the character, then you, as somebody who, I mean, John, you're not going to suit up and go to space and do that. You're not going to do that. We can fantasize. I could do that, but then you won't really feel the effect of the day-to-day life. Like, it's almost like they try to create slice of life, taking the anime genre, the slice of life mode with this of going, this is a slice of life within a day in the life of a person who's about to see the world come to an end. Yeah. Of showing you that way you can, because that's the reason why people like slice of life, is because they go, yeah, this is life. You know, this is just normal everyday life. They get away from all the excitement and this is just real life. And so it's almost like it's trying to push you into the mode of, you know, you could see yourself as a mom trying to figure out what you're going to do with your child. You can see yourself as a father who's concerned about his family. You can see yourself as just a kid who's just trying to survive and going, what the heck am I going to do? At that age. And so I wonder if that's the purpose. I'm not saying they did it well. I wonder if that was the purpose of having that weird, here's your key role, and now we're just going to follow you until the big rock hits the ground.
I think if they had done this as a TV show with multiple episodes and stretched all these stories out, that would have been effective. Like, have several episodes dedicated to the reporter digging in, researching what she thinks is Ellie, only to find out it's ELE. Have several episodes of, we could even do that with the high school kid and make him relevant. I would argue, instead of having them be like, hey, cool, I found this asteroid that's going to blow up the Earth. Like, have him sick that his name is attached to something that could potentially kill everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like, to me, that would have been more believable, instead of him being, hey, it's awesome, I'm going to do whatever. Have him be like, I don't like that this is, you know, have people see him in the street and have issues of misplaced anger. Like, they actually hate him because he's the one that found the asteroid that's going to blow up the Earth. Like, you know, I've experienced that myself when people give me bad news and it's not their fault that I'm getting the bad news, but I have anger towards that person because they're the one delivering it. Like, I would have loved to see that, have him chased down in the street because this is your fault. You're the one that did this, and him struggle with it. Have several episodes where we see the astronauts before they lift off, and that bar scene where there's a dynamic and the guy's like, you're here because you're the face, you're the show. Everyone knows you, but you don't really serve a purpose. Have several episodes where that conversation is fleshed out instead of, you know, cram it all into a 2-hour movie.
I get that, but I think, but because we have a movie in front of us, I think what you're demonstrating is, as is, it doesn't work. And to take it to what Dallas was saying, as far as was it in here to add that slice of life, I can respect that idea, but then make the movie about that.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I think that I think that whoever came up with the core, because I know there were several writers on this. I think whoever came up with the core of this movie, it felt like there was two writers writing an apocalyptic comet hits the Earth movie, and they came up with two scripts, and then they just slammed them together. Either tell the slice of life perspective, which I think can be done really interesting. You could do something like Don't Look Up, which was a movie that came out several years ago about a comet or a meteor that's going to hit the Earth, that the government's trying to cover up that it's going to happen because, you know, there's nothing they can do about it. And quite frankly, there's no point in panicking everybody.
Right.
So, you know, and that's what that whole movie's about. So if you want to do that slice of life and have the political intrigue, do something like that. If you want to humanity bands together and we need to save ourselves, then do that. You can't doing both over the course of only 2 hours, and you have at least 8 different stories you're trying to tell within those two separate narratives that you're putting forward, you can't do it.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, or you can, but you can't do it in the scope that they tried to do it in this movie with the depth that they were searching for, because you just don't got enough space. You're going to end up you're going to have to take stuff out, or you're going to have a 4-hour movie.
Yeah. I get that. At the same time, while we're kind of dogging the storytelling and the pacing, everything, it held my attention though. Like the when it was intense, when it was like when they were up there and they're trying to they're rushing against the clock to get back to the ship because all of a sudden they're behind. Those gas things are blowing up everywhere. Man, I'm on the edge of my seat. I'm going, run, sucker, run! Like, you know, and like when home dude gets like just pop flying out into space like a Wrigley Field ball, I'm just like, he's dead. No, like I was in it in those moments. Like they did a great job.
I just need to say, worst way to die.
I know, right?
Yeah.
That's terrifying. But again, that's the thing about it is when they went to his POV floating, I went, holy crap, like my stomach curled up. I was like, and that's what I'm talking about. Like I feel like some of the weirdness that we had was them trying to put you in the moments with these people.
Yeah. I don't think you took a breath until they switched POVs.
No, that my knees went, my knees turned to jello, and my stomach just shot down to my feet when they did the POV of the guy flying off into eternal nothingness. I'm like, oh no, I
had to rock back and forth and hug myself and reassure myself that I was okay. It's okay.
Well, and then you cut to again. This we talked about the greatness of the actors and some of the what they did. You go to Robert Duvall. And here he is. He's having to go, we're not going back for him.
Yeah.
And like he's having to make the decision: save one man or save everybody. And he's already made one decision: try to save as many people as possible by moving the ship in the first place. And so, like he's having to deal with that reality and fighting with the Russian dude at the same time. Like that was intense for a good minute.
Yeah,
I think it was a good way to highlight his character in that he was the more experienced one in the group. He is the one who had lost friends before.
Right.
Requesting permission to assert some black humor.
What?
Huh?
I want to make a joke, but it's going to be dark.
Oh.
Okay.
So while we were just talking about that there, it hit me what would have been a perfect musical interlude when that guy got jettisoned out into space off the comet. When they did that, if they played that
Fly me to
no, so much better. If they played that part from David Bowie's Space Oddity, where he's like, "This is Major Tom to ground control. I'm stepping out the door. And I'm floating in the most peculiar way. And I think my starship seems to know the way."
Wow.
I'm just over here going, so long and thanks for all of it.
I'm not gonna lie. I would have enjoyed that musical interlude if they had done, but there's a tone that would have me. They do. I enjoy when movies play, not unusual, but very different musical scores than what people are expecting.
Yeah.
I really enjoy when they do that, when they're playing with that kind of aspect of it.
Sort of like how they use the classic rock in A Knight's Tale.
Yeah.
Or how in House of Ninja, they have this very happy-go-lucky music, but it's a very dark story. Or what's the one that we watched for
80s synthesizer music during a European medieval romance, maybe?
No.
Just going to throw that in there?
No.
That didn't work for me. I'm not a big in 80s music anyways.
What's the one that you and I watched when we were dating?
We watched a lot.
They were.
Yes.
Ooh.
Oh. I'll have to Google it, but there was a series that we watched.
It was a sentient disease, and people would like die in terribly gory deaths. And you're sitting here going, holy crap, what just happened? Obviously, this was pre-2020, but
you have my attention.
And then all of a sudden it would be like, Mr. Sandman, bring me a dream.
Bum, 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 bum.
And like, but it's panning out from the terrible thing that just happened. And so it was completely off tone, but it also at the same time, the songs would relate in some way. But it was always that really chipper, like 50s music.
Hey, Celeste.
Yeah.
I got you to sing on one of my podcasts.
Helix.
Dang it. Helix. That was it.
Yep. That was the show we're talking about. So anyways, back to the movie.
I just snorted on mic. That's awesome.
I didn't recognize Jon Favreau in this. Like at first,
very young Jon Favreau.
Very young and slim.
Very, very young.
He was the one that played Rocket Man at the up there.
He was the one that jettisoned.
Oh.
Yep.
Oh.
That was Jon
He jettisoned
Favreau.
all the way to Earth 616.
Head confirmed.
So,
but he made a stop by the other Marvel universe to play Foggy Nelson for just a little bit.
Just a little bit.
I want to point out the real quick the tension of the selection process. I half expected, like when we got to the point of in my selection process, the whole like who lives and who doesn't live, that whole ordeal. I have expected a lot more rioting to be seen when they were doing like taking people over there. I mean, we kind of saw a little bit, but I expected more of that. But I guess that again, that was what this film was about. That would have been really interesting to see played out in a series. And we've said this a lot on the show. I feel like that needs to be we need a tag. Well, that needs to be we need a shirt or something for the bottom shelf that says it should have been a series, because so many of the movies we've done, we've like, man, if they fleshed that into a series, it would have been better. And because there's so much of this world that I would have been interested in seeing fleshed out.
Look for the bottom shelf merch at the Geek Devotions store soon.
This should have been a series.
If there was a shirt we needed to have made, that's going to be the one.
That would be it.
I'll start working on that.
So that said, this is turning into a long episode, guys. Does anybody else have anything to say before we go into our final ratings?
I will say this about the whole lottery thing, and the concept of people, I think it was people over the age of 51 were automatically excluded because the idea is they were beyond childbearing years. So they really weren't going to help promote
they wouldn't survive in the ark.
Yeah, that struck a chord with me, and I kind of that was a part of the movie that kind of took me out of it, because I've had that conversation with people about when you have a loved one who's elderly. I just have very, very, very strong opinions about that. And and maybe that was the point of the movie, was to make you think about those kinds of things. But seeing quote unquote elderly people just kind of accept their fate and go to their homes and have their
unalive themselves.
It bothered me deeply. And I don't like that. I don't like that view was given a heroic light. I don't like that it was so casually accepted. And once again, maybe if the movie had more time, like you said, it wouldn't have been so casually accepted. But that's one of those things I've got very, very strong opinions about. And I did not care for that plot point. Like,
I don't think it was casually accepted. I don't think I think it was meant to go, because there is this, again, we are rushing through a lot of story, obviously, with that horror deal, but it was a hard thing. And, I don't think, she's sitting there and she's having to like mourn her mother's death, realizing she can't even bury her mother.
No, I'm talking about the acceptance of the people who were over 51. Like, there was not a single old person in that movie who was like, hey, what about me? What about me? All of them were like, yeah, that's cool. All right, fine.
Yeah.
I'm old. Let the young kids go. And while I understand that concept of I've lived my life, let the young live, I don't like the glorification of that attitude of once you're past a certain age, you're really not contributing anything. So why are you even here?
And at the same time, 50 is still young.
Hold on.
Yes.
Put a pause on that. 50 in the 90s is a lot different than 50 in 2024. To put it in context, do you know how old the Golden Girls were on their TV show, which was
they're in their 90s? 40s. And
they were in their 50s.
Were they?
Mm-hmm.
For real?
Yeah.
Yes,
yeah,
ma'am.
they were. Yeah, that is definitely a thing that people are discounting, is the way that we age today versus 20 years ago, because we don't
30.
live as hard of a life, 30 years. We don't live as hard of a life as people used to do. And just the stressors, everything, like, we live longer and functionally we are better now than we were back then. My aunt and uncle, they are in their 80s and 90s, and they look better today than my grandmother did in her 60s.
My father-in-law is in his mid to late 60s, and he could beat the ever-loving tar out of me if he so chose to do.
Yeah. Now, that's not to say that what Branson's point of like, the like, I'm just going to lay back and let it happen.
Oh, absolutely not.
I don't think there was a glorification of it. What I saw was depression in her mother, that depression state of going, like, she can't fight this, and she wasn't accepting of it, but it was a depression type of state, and she was going to, what many people do in their own. It was a bit glorifying also, that mindset of, I'm going to take my own life here. But I don't think it was glorifying. I think it was showing the sadness of the horror situation, because then you see it on the back end with the daughter mourning the fact that she's lost her mother.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And she cannot bury her mother because the whole world's coming to an end. And then she's angry at her dad because of the time lost. And she realizes there's so much more left that she needed from her mother, and she can never get back.
Still didn't sit well with me.
I mean, I got you.
I agree with that,
fine.
Branson, but I would go as far as to say that I think what you're experiencing is the same thing, that is a symptom of the same thing we've been talking about this whole episode, in that there were complex situations that were presented. They didn't have time to go as deep into it as the situation merited. And as a result, as a result, what they were trying to do suffered because of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that is kind of the common denominator of how I feel about disaster movies in general. But let's go ahead and wrap this up because, oh my gosh, we are at how long the episode should be, and we're not even. All right. So we are at the rating portion. I'm going to say it like how it almost came out. We are at the rating portion of this podcast. And miss you, Kevin. And how do we rate this podcast? Somebody throw it out there. I don't want to pick somebody, or is it my turn?
I can read it because I have the notes up.
You can be my hero. You can be my hero, Celeste.
Okay.
Go kiss your husband, not me.
So, the rating system for the bottom shelf is this. Top shelf, I need to own this. Middle shelf, maybe if it was streaming. Bottom shelf, probably won't watch it again. Dumpster fire, I will actively keep people watching this movie.
Away from watching it.
That's what I said?
No,
you said
let
I will
your own
actively
opinion
keep people
slip in
watching.
there. I will actively keep people watching this movie.
I will tie you down to a chair and force your eyes open, and you will watch
I
it,
meant to say
and you will
keep
like
people
it.
from watching this movie. I apologize.
No, you said what you did to me for this movie.
I'm sorry.
All right. With that being said, I'm going to let the woman of the hour state her case. Go ahead, Celeste.
So, because it is a movie that I have a lot of nostalgia for, I kind of wish that we rated similarly to Retro Rewind Podcast, because this would fit in a nostalgic. It's not fantastic, but I have a love for it. I will watch this again because it brings back good memories for me. Just sitting and watching it, and it makes me go, now we should watch this. I told Dallas, I was like, now I want to go get Armageddon. And so for me, by our rating system, it's a top shelf. But is it a fantastic movie? No, but I have a lot of nostalgia for it.
Yeah, but it's all about how you feel about it. So
yeah. So for me, it would be a top
several
shelf.
terrible movies that we have every intention of watching multiple times.
Oh, for sure.
That's fair.
I own Battlefield Earth, everybody. I'm going to put that out there. And I do want to reiterate, these ratings are in no way, if you like this movie, We're not trying to denigrate your point of view. This is simply for review purposes, for us to comically illustrate our opinions that into a succinct point. So if you say, hey, John, you're full of crap, this movie's fantastic, go for it. My wife loved this movie when we watched it. So
good. I'm glad she liked it.
We are all adults and we can all have different opinions. Please remember that this election year.
Moving on.
Celeste, did you have something else you were about to say, or are we just moving on?
No. I'm just, for me, I have an understanding that not everybody is going to like this.
For sure.
So I feel the need to preface it with, I don't think this is the best movie ever. This is not even my favorite movie, but this is a movie that I love.
100%. So. All right. Moving on down the line, Captain Dallas.
Yeah. So for me, like I said, I mean, I totally recognize the issue of just a whole bunch of story being crammed into a time span. And like I said, we need to have shirts that said this would have been better as a series. But I had fun with it. Like I said, it held my attention. I was on the edge of my seat several times. I was like, run, dude, carry that baby up that mountain right now. I mean, I was rooting for him. I was like, go Frodo. But
which, just to call back, that's when Dallas had issues with the special effects.
Yes. Oh, right. I forgot to mention that whole scene. The water coming in and the waves, that's where they lost in the special effects. I apologize.
I kind of thought that. Watch it in UHD, my man.
Yeah.
It still looks artificial, but it's a passable level of artificial.
Interesting. So for me, I don't feel a need to go own it because I do own it, but but I'm before it. I'm not gonna we need to go get this movie. But if it was on, if it was streaming, if Celeste was like, "Hey, can we watch this?" Yeah, rock it out. Let's do it. We'll have fun with this. And so, she's probably already planning for our next anniversary movie marathon, just disaster movie galore. And this is probably going to be on the list.
Has crossed my mind.
I figured. So I'm going to give this a middle shelf.
All right. Well, we're starting to create a spectrum here, everybody. Bam, where are you at?
I'm kind of like Celeste said that it's nostalgic for her and she has every intention of watching it multiple times, but she recognizes it's not a great movie. I'm kind of on the opposite end of the other side of that coin. I really don't have any intention of watching this movie again. There was nothing in it that made me go, "Ooh, I want to see this again." But I also don't hate it. As Dallas pointed out, the moments where it was really good, it was really good. It's just it wasn't cohesively good enough for me to feel like spending time with it again. So I'm going to rate it on the bottom shelf simply because I won't watch it again. But I feel like that's almost an unfair rating because I don't hate it to the level that you would expect a person bottom shelving a movie to be.
No, that's what the dumpster fire's for.
So
no, bottom shelf is just, I personally will never watch this again. If you dig it, cool, but I personally will never. The ratings have to be personal because we can't objectively say this is what this movie is equivalent to.
Yeah. Right. And I'm going to have to bottom shelf it because it wasn't a terrible, terrible movie. And there were things to like about it, but it didn't hold my interest enough to want to watch it again.
Mm-hmm.
So
now taking bets as to what people think I'm going to rate this movie as.
If I can put this in there, John's been gaslighting us the entire time. This is his favorite movie. It's top shelf. And he's got Morgan Freeman tattooed on his left butt cheek going, "We're going to survive."
Okay. First of all, I'm going to preface this by saying I don't like Morgan Freeman. I don't enjoy him as an actor.
Oh.
So, but that being said, I haven't pretended what my opinion is about this movie. I didn't enjoy it.
Right.
There were moments like seeing the consigliere of the Corleone family drive a spaceship. I never thought I'd see that in my lifetime, but here we are. And there were points in this movie where I'm like, there were blips of, hey, that's cool. But it just felt like the director was dunking on everybody in this movie the entire time until the very end, and then all of a sudden happy ending, sort of. The writing, I think this movie could have done with better editing, cut half the story out and expand on what you have left.
Mm-hmm.
The acting I felt was very good for the material they had to work with. I felt the effects were hold up for the most part. Basically everything other than the story in this movie I appreciated. I'm not going to dumpster fire this movie because I wouldn't tell people don't watch this movie. Honestly, I would recommend this to people like my wife who are really into disaster movies.
Mm-hmm.
And chances are I'm probably going to end up having to buy it because she'll probably want it. That being said, as I and like I told Bam earlier, the ratings do need to be individualized because we can't objectively equivocate a movie to a rating. So taking my wife out of that equation, I would have to put this on a bottom shelf because where I didn't enjoy it, I can understand how other people would. And if that's your jam, I would, if your jam is narrative light, disaster movie, then this is going to be for you. unfortunately, that's not me, and I can't put it any higher. So with that said, I'm going to have to put it on the bottom shelf.
I've lost track. What does that mean?
That means
What does
it's
that make it?
a disputed bottom
Contested.
shelf.
Disputed
Okay.
bottom shelf.
I'm like, I've forgotten what everybody said.
Yeah, before we got to me, we had the full spectrum other than dumpster
Gotcha.
fire. So
Yeah.
All right. So that said, everybody, let us know your opinion about this movie. Did you enjoy it? Did you not enjoy it? Why? Let us know. But with that being said, let's go ahead and go on over to our weak connections.
This is a weak connection.
Welcome to the spiritual portion of the podcast where we share any kind of spiritual ideals or anything that was inspired by this movie. Does anybody have a weak connection to start with?
I do.
Go for it, my man.
Cool. So in Morgan Freeman's final address to the people right before the comment was about to go boom, he quotes a particular passage which is found in the book of Numbers, specifically Numbers chapter 6, coming down here to verse 22. And this is in the midst of the establishment of the people of Israel as far as the country, and Moses is giving instructions, and he's giving instructions to Aaron, who's the head of all the priests. Him and his sons are basically in charge of leading the spiritual development of the country. And Morgan Freeman quotes this thing that's become popular in a song recently that a lot of churches are doing. And starting in verse 24, it says, "May the Lord bless you and protect you. May the Lord smile on you and be gracious to you. May the Lord show you his favor and give you his peace." And Morgan Freeman, he does this whole thing. He's like, I don't know if you believe in God, but I do. And basically, he's as a leader declaring over the people a blessing. And I found that moment powerful, not just because I'm a Christian, not just because I'm someone who's like, hey, the Bible's good and it's good to see leaders doing it. But there is something about a leader blessing the people, especially in times of hardship. When Moses is rallying the people and he's getting them prepped up, it's not like that life is going to be good and everything's going to be just fuzzy for the people of Israel. This is the beginning of everything before captivity and all sorts of stuff takes place. It's a rough time for the people of Israel. And yet there's this blessing that he's telling the people, telling Aaron, his sons, to bless the people with. And it's a simple blessing of, Lord shall protect us, shows grace to us, no matter how ignorant we are. And also that he'll have favor with us and give us peace. And I wish that in this time frame that we are in, more leaders would simply just bless people rather than taking time to curse each other. Leaders would take more time to bless those that they're leading and bless the people around them, even the enemies, rather than cursing the next political opponent they're going against, or the person who maybe is going for that extra career move that could put you out of a position. And my encouragement to you guys is just be a blessing to people. Spend more time blessing folks than cursing people, especially those that you are frustrated with. Because that can be, there's this old saying that buddy of mine used to say, it's hard to be angry at somebody you're praying for. And we have been in time frames where we have been in turmoil a lot over the last forever as humanity. But I want to encourage you guys, if you're in turmoil, if you're in a time frame where you're struggling with people, bless those people. Bless those who curse you is what the scriptures tells us to do. And this right here, this guide, it's not a bad blessing. Don't just repeat the words, but genuinely pray for the Lord to bless those who have attacked you, for him to protect them, to be gracious towards them, and to show favor and peace. And God will bless you for doing that type of thing also. So that's my weak connection.
My pastor actually ends every service with that blessing as well. So it hit it hit a comfortable note with me.
Nice.
Anyone else have a weak connection?
I have one.
Go, Bam.
The moment that made me appreciate Jenny Lerner as a character in this movie was at the very end of the movie where she's on her way to the helicopter to get out of the way of the tsunami that's coming through. She automatically gets a spot because she's, the reporter that discovered this whole thing. And her colleague is sitting in one of the top upstairs offices with her daughter, realizing that, this is it. So she's just finding the highest place she can get to. And Jenny grabs her daughter, runs up to the helipad, throws her daughter in the helicopter and says, "You're taking my spot. Go." And gives up her spot for her friend and her daughter. And that was the scene that instead, up until that point, my view of her was kind of her character is pointless. Why is her character even in this movie? At that moment, it made me wish that they had gone back and given her character more development so that moment would have even more meaning. But seeing that happen, seeing her give up her spot, realizing it meant she was about to die for her friend, reminded me of this Bible verse, John chapter 15, verse 13. It says, greater love has no one than this, that someone lay down his life for his friends. That's actually said by Jesus during the Last Supper before he goes to be betrayed and crucified. And that concept of laying down one's life for someone else is something that I think is all too absent in the way we carry ourselves. In this world where everything is me focused, how many followers do I have? Let me take selfies. Am I trending? What are people saying on my posts? What's my truth? What's going to help me go forward? There's not a lot of emphasis on how do I sacrifice and give of myself to help someone else? How can I step down so that someone else can take my spot in something? And it was refreshing to see that in a movie, that concept of self-sacrifice. And I think it's a good reminder that as followers of Jesus, we are to mimic Jesus and put the well-being and care of others before ourselves. Now, that's not to say to become a doormat, and I know people can abuse that and take that too far.
Yeah.
But there is something holy and righteous about putting the needs of others before yourself. And to say, you know what, in this moment, it's not about me. It's not about what I want. It's not about me being heard. It's about making sure this person that I care for has everything that they need to do what they need to do, or to be able to accomplish what they want to accomplish. And if I don't get the credit for it, or if I don't get all the accolades, or if I don't get noticed for it, or even if I end up in a worse spot now than I would have before, that's okay, because I'm doing this out of an act of love. And that's my weak connection.
I have a weak connection, and actually I have two weak connections, but one's more of a less of a scripture based and more of a allegory. But I'll start with the scripture one first. Mine comes from Hebrews 12:15, which is, "See to it that no one fails to obtain the grace of God, that no root of bitterness springs up and causes trouble, and by it many become defiled." This I am obviously talking about the reporter again, as throughout the whole entire movie, she spends her entire time being bitter at her father. And there was many times throughout this movie where my wife was saying, "The world's ending and you can't forgive your father." And it reminds me, okay, y'all. No, I'm gonna save that for something me and Bam are gonna be doing next week. So stay tuned for that. But just if you hear this and then you see something show up in your Patreon feed, just understand there's going to be a correlative link. But I spend a lot of time in my early Christian years being bitter at my father. And God called me out specifically on it. But it was through it was through me forgiving my father and making the decision to do that and choose to interact with him again after the fact that eventually contributed to him coming to know Christ later on in life.
Right.
And when it comes to bitterness, there's a question where you eventually need to ask yourself is it more important for you to be bitter at that person than it is for that person to not go to hell?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that's the first one. The second one is an analogy that I made when Bam was talking, because he made me see something that I don't think anybody noticed in this movie, including myself, which is the whole point of the whole core action, if you want to put it this way. The narrative function that brought resolution to this movie was that the Messiah had to die so everyone on earth could live.
Oh, yeah. I had not thought about that.
The ship was named Messiah,
The Messiah.
Yep.
Yeah.
and it had to blow up so that the earth could be saved. Dang.
I just destroyed Branson's mind. As I was saying this, I was specifically staring at Branson's camera feed just to watch the smoke come out of his ears, and I heard the question echo in his head. Why didn't I notice that first?
That's good, man.
Wow.
So that being said, everybody out there, I want to tell you that I appreciate everybody listening. I appreciate the three of you for playing this stupid little game I play every so often. We have boxes still.
Oh.
Dallas, I guess you're on the docket for the next one.
Is that a good thing?
It wasn't this time. So
Let's see what happens.
We'll see what happens next time on The Bottom Shelf. So long, everybody. Hope you had fun.